Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome back to NPTEL online course on research methodology for planning and architectural studies. After our previous discussion on the research process and all, today we are going to discuss a very important aspect. Like even if you make a very good research methodology, even if you made a wonderful research, but unless otherwise we write it properly, we communicate it properly and publish it in a very good journal, then probably it is half done and probably the purpose of your research will not be fulfilled. So keeping that in mind, today and our next lecture will be focusing on various aspects of research writing. So without any further delay, we'll start our lecture number 9 today, which is on research writing part 1. So in this lecture, what will we learn? We learn what is research writing, need for research writing, important step in research writing and also the component of research writing, and then we'll summarize our understanding. Now what is research writing? Research writing is a systematic and organized process of creating a written document that explores and communicate the results of scholarly investigation or inquiry in a particular topic. So it may be a planning topic, it may be architectural topic, it may be any other topic that you picked up for your research, and finally you come up with certain kind of findings. Now it's time to write it properly in a proper systematic way so that you can publish it in a reputed journal or present it in a good conference. Now research writing is the work of getting detailed and organized information in the study and writing it. So it is very important that we have to write it. Otherwise, if you conduct any research and if it is not being written, so probably that will not be disseminated to the research community. Now what exactly happening in this? Say for example, in this particular schematic, if you understand that suppose you do some experiment in lab, you find certain findings, and when you get that okay, this findings is very interesting, it is actually going to prove certain kind of hypothesis, or maybe it is something that against certain theory, and you establish that okay, this can be done in the other way around. So then it is the proper documentation and writing it, and then the main idea to disclose it, to disseminate this particular knowledge that you acquired through your research to the other researcher, so that this way research can be progressed in a right direction. Now why we need to write our research? First, definitely the knowledge expansion. So the moment you start writing, will get the clarity and something, whatever the new findings that I have obtained from my research, I will then expand my knowledge and I'll share this knowledge to the research and scientific community. Then it will also help in critical thinking skill, because maybe when we started the research taking certain objective, making a formulation of a methodology, then dealing with the data collection, everything is in place. But when you are started writing it, so you have to think that okay, how you can concise your write up and how it can be pinpointed to the targeted audience. So like that it will improve your critical thinking skill. Now it will also help you to grow in your professional development. The moment you write a good research, you will be known, you will be acknowledged to the research community. That will be also required. Suppose if you are a PhD student, so this is something that a good research paper will help you to get your PhD degree, and many institutions they might have certain norms of certain number of papers to be published before you get your PhD degree. Or if you are faculty member, then also for your academic growth and professional growth, there are certain requirement to write this paper. And as because if we keep all those kind of benefits of getting the published paper, but for research interest for which you are conducting the research, it will give you that kind of satisfaction. Now a good writing, a research writing will also help to go for a decision making, because whenever you are doing something action oriented research or policy oriented research, so based on your findings a policy can be formulated. There will be some scientific advancement. Suppose you are doing some experiment and research on certain theory, scientific theory. So then based on your research, if it can make a certain progress in that particular theory, or may add certain value to that theory, that will be some sort of scientific advancement. Now communication and collaboration, this is again very important part. The moment you disseminate your research through your research writing, so then your communication will be much more advanced. So you can collaborate with other institute, other organizations from abroad, so that the researcher who are working in your discipline can make a joint effort and make some collaborative research in future. Now at the same time, research writing will also assure the quality, because many a times, like during that particular write up, you will find certain difficulty, probably something is missed out. So probably you have to relook into the data, you relook into the analysis and interpret it. So quality assurance is another important aspect of the research writing, and that is why a good research writing is required. Educational contribution. If you are academician, student, researcher, postdoctoral fellow, research fellow, or faculty members, so in that case, like through your research you can really contribute to the educational advancement. So the research can go on certain topics. Suppose where you end up with certain future scope of work, the other scholar may start at that particular point and can get benefited out of your research papers and your thesis. Now policy development, where the focus is on policy, and your research will help to formalize a implementable policy with confidence. Public understanding. A good research writing should not be like all the time very much technical, especially when you are going for certain kind of social research. So your research output should also reach to the people. Okay, the it will be implementable, and then the public can easily understand, can follow the write up. And the moment you have your good research publication and all, you will have the credibility, you will have the recognition, then you will be invited for certain kind of guest lecture to or maybe invited speech for different conferences and all. So that will also give you some sort of credit for your research. Now important steps in research writing, that how we start, what are the different steps. So step number 1 is the topic. So you have to spend time, you have to give time to select the topic that you are going to work on. Next, one it is done, so you have to do some kind of preliminary research, so that you get to know that okay, this is something a new area, or it is the research gap where you can go ahead. After identifying the gap, you have to also develop the research questions that we discussed in the other lecture, that after identifying the gap, you have to formulate some research questions which you will answer through your objectives, through your overall methodology and the methods. Then after that, you have to also think of an outline, that what you are going to write in this. Like research writing can be a thesis where you have to write your all the work that you have done, starting from your first objective to the last one. But if you are targeting this writing is intended to publish a paper or a conference paper, so you have to make a outline, that what you will include, what should be the sequence. After that, introduction, which is very important, like how you introduce your topic, how you introduce the background of that particular research, which will help. And after that, which is very important for that, is conducting a comprehensive literature review. Because as I said earlier as well, that if you claim that okay, this is something that I am doing for the first time, before you claim that, you also should look at the other literature, whether this kind of work has been done in other context or in other geographical location, so that you will be sure that okay, whatever you are claiming is right. Once it is done, then you must have some sort of methodology. Then it's straightforward, like the collection of data. After that, you analyze the data with the suitable methods that we have discussed in detail earlier, then reporting the result. But it is not just reporting the result, you also need to interpret the result in discussion section of your write up, that if it is happening, why it is happening, and what will be the implication of that. Then one of the critical part is the writing the conclusion and recommendation part. Then once it is ready, that will be a draft, but there will be some kind of mistakes in terms of sentence structuring, in terms of the sequence, in terms of flow of the paper, and then it is very important for multiple time editing and revising your paper. After that, you finalize the paper, and then in the paper, which is one of the important part, is giving the citation and also create a list of references at the end. And then finally, you find a suitable journal or a conference or a forum where you want to showcase your research or you want to submit your research. So these are the broad steps of research writing. Now if we discuss in general the content of research writing or components of research writing. So taking something like a typical paper as example, so we'll have a title, we'll have an abstract, we have introduction, we have literature review section, we have methodology, and in some of the journal they follow that IMRAD format, that introduction, methodology, result, analysis and discussion. So then you have to show something method, then database, the data you collected, and then how you prepare the database for analysis. Then you have result, then discussion, conclusion, references, acknowledgement, also very important, to cite all the organizations or the individuals or any other way you got certain help and support towards that particular research. Then if you have some sort of index like a data set or any supplementary material. Now we will discuss one by one, and this is some of the aspect and what should be the intent to write that. Say for example, if we say the title of a paper, so first of all it should have clarity, that there should not be ambiguity in it, as because title is the first sentence you can say that reader will read. Even somebody will search something about any topic and all, so first thing is the title. So in that case there should be clarity, and normally depending on the journal there is also some restriction that you have to write it in say 10 words, 20 words or 15 words. So you have to be choosy about the word that you can put into the title. That is why it is should be something very concise. You should not add unnecessarily more objective or maybe other punctuations and other thing in your title. So how to assure it? So that is not very easy. Say for example, you want to do something like to investigate tourist perception towards say hotel satisfaction in a destination of a hill tourist place, say for example. So in all these cases, though this is something like the overall objective, but how to write it, whether should we write it investigating, whether it is measuring, so all these words will play a crucial role, right? So in that case you have to be very sure about it, what you want to showcase in your title and then make it concise. First, you make a long title and try to remove unnecessary word and try to read it again. If there is no change in the that particular understanding of the title, so definitely that word can be removed. Like that, with iterative process, you can fix up something like a proper title of your research. Then the relevance, right? Obviously in this case it should be concise, but at the same time it should not lose the essence that reading the title people will not understand what is inside. Then it should be very specific. Okay, it should not be like just expanding a particular title and make it very broad. Like, suppose you have done some work on addressing some sustainability, or say for example sustainable development goals 11, like sustainable cities and other aspect of SDGs, and then you say that the research on sustainability and then city development. So it is very broad ended part, and that will not really be interesting thing to the audience, to the readers. So then you need to specify. Then originality is very important. It should not be like similar title is already there, right? So how will you check it? Definitely in that case we have so many search engines available with us, and I'll also show you in our coming lectures that different research search engines. One of them, say, maybe just you search your title in Google. So if the same title exists somewhere, it will show you. So that is some check you can do. But again, it is based on my experience what I'm saying, that if you write the title at your own, it is not possible, or maybe it is the rare to rarest case that it will be exactly same with another title. So you have to make that original. Then it should be something that looking at the title there should be some interest. So maybe if you have used certain sort of interesting novel methods and your paper is on methodology or methods, that kind of word you can put it. Say you have done something on the spatial method, say GIS MCDM, so you can bring that into the title. But it is not always that you should bring your method in the title, depending on what is there inside. If your paper is not going to tell the new methodology or new developed method, it is just the application of any method, so you just be specific to your content rather than the methods. Grammar and style very important, because it will go to the international community, so where you have to follow and you have to maintain the consistency. You may follow the British English, you may follow the American English, these are two common language that we are writing, but there can be some kind of local languages in the local journals, so the consistency should be maintained. Alignment with the research content, so the title should also reflect the overall body of your paper, right? It should not be like after reading your whole paper, if I will not understand what is the meaning of this title, so that is also not correct. Give or use proper keyword kind of thing, so that whenever somebody would like to work on your research area, by typing those words can reach to your particular paper. So in that case, the advantage, definitely your work will be reviewed by those researchers, that if that will be of some interest by that researcher, so it will be cited, so you will get that particular credit as well. Coming to abstract, it is again you have to maintain the clarity. It should be concise, because many journals they just tell you about, say, 200 words, or maybe it is sometimes they are now asking for 150 words, 100 words, or maximum to maximum 500 words that you have to narrate. So what exactly you need to give there? In that case, you have to give the contextual information, the overall objective or maybe need of the research, then straight away what you have done in your research. You don't need to again repeat the same thing what you are going to write in introduction. So let me tell you, this is something that I have also observed while reviewing some of the papers, that it's almost pretty same. The first paragraph of the introduction is pretty same to the abstract, which will be discouraging. Definitely as a reviewer, this is something like, you have not worked out very well in your abstract. Then also you have to give some critical results, because when you submit a paper also, so first, when in most of the journals, the way it is being done, that the when they that will be sent for review, to get the acceptance for the review invitation. So the abstract is shared with the unknown reviewer, and then after reading the abstract, one will decide that, okay, this paper, whether I would like to review or not. So that is why abstract is very, very important, and you should really work very seriously on it. And preferably the abstract should be written at the end, when you have whole sections ready for your paper, so that it can convey the objective, methods, result, then implication, that how this paper is going to help, whether it is the theoretical advancement, whether that is going to give you some sort of practical implication and all. Add the keyword, so that again, the nowadays it's a search by the keyword, so that your work will come. Accuracy, there should not be any such kind of margin for error, and you should not put anything which is inaccurate and something vague. And then there should be some engaging language. So as because the write up is very crisp, you have very limitation with the words, so you have to be choosy about the word and sentence. So you have to write again and again the abstract, and try to see whether a sentence is required, or removing that sentence the meaning will not change, so then remove that part. You don't need to add certain extra sentence as extra fat to the body. Coming to the introduction, so in this case, definitely to start with a good introduction, so you have to have a clear statement of the problem. That suppose you want to do something on the active transportation or micro mobility. So in that particular case, why it is required, what is the current trend, okay, and how the active transportation or micro mobility can solve the transportation problem in a city. So that particular part you have to give at the beginning with facts and figure. Purpose and objective should be clear in the introduction, and this should be much more elaborated than the abstract. Then if you have research hypothesis or questions, sometimes you may not have hypothesis, but you must have certain research questions which you will answer through your particular research or the objective. And also it is wise advice to you that also say your scope and limitation, and also if it is the study area dependent thing, you mention about the study area thing. Significance of the study, how it is going to help, so that you also need to write here. Engaging opening, so the first few lines will be your opening thing. So you must have heard about many such kind of presentation or different kind of motivational speech in YouTubes and other thing. So obviously the first few sentence, if you like it, so then you will start following it, and then you will be engaged to that. If the first few sentence or the paragraph is really vague, or it is not matching with the abstract or the title or the intended content, so people will lose interest. And there should be a logical flow, that it is not that first you say objective, then you say the background, or first you say that what is the content of this particular paper, and then you come to that particular objective and method. So there should be a proper sequence, and normally nowadays many researchers follow, and I also suggest you to follow. That will help, that towards the end of the introduction section of your paper, you just write the organization of that paper, that introduction is one, what is in the section 2, what is in section 3. That will help to follow very easily. Then cohesiveness with the title, so by reading your introduction, one should get a feeling that, okay, whatever is the title of the paper, okay, it is making some sense. Then again, it should be something like concise. It is not that in order to explain each and everything you are expanding it, because nowadays for all such kind of research paper, there are restriction of the word limit. So for that, your introduction section should be crisp, so that you can focus much more on utilizing those space for discussing your result. You can add another table or figure. Coming to the next important part, that is the literature review section. But now here we may have a debate that should we have a separate review section in our paper or not. So it depends on paper to paper. So for that, I suggest you to go through the author guidelines, and then if the paper they demands, the particular journal demands that there should be a separate literature review section, so it is better to use it, because this is the section which will give the reviewer confidence that you are aware of the work of your field, and then you successfully identify the gap. So those kind of review can be like, some kind of review for the context, review can be done for the methods, it can be on certain kind of special consideration. So for that you must have a thematic organization of the literature review section. So as I mentioned, that some part is on the context, some part of the method that used to solve that particular issue. Then there should be critical evaluation. It is not that literature review means you just report it. So reporting this thing is okay, that is just compilation of the literature, but what is the take away of this? If after reading 5-6 papers on a particular method, if you can able to say that okay, looking at the data type, this is the method and this is the techniques that people have used successfully, and that is the case of mine, so I'll also adopt that. So then that is giving a confidence, okay, so you have reviewed and evaluated. Synthesis of the information, wherever it is a argument and other type of statement, so you have to also analyze it very clearly. Next one is the chronological and conceptual arrangement. So if you are making a review paper specially, so that advancement, it should be a chronological, that first it was coined, then it evolved in this direction, like that. So this is something very important, so that there will be a sequence, that how you are citing your literature. Inclusion of the key studies. Suppose normally nowadays it is being advised that you follow last 10 years research and then try to do the literature review, but some initial idea, okay, which may be little old, like maybe developed or the paper published in 80s 70s, but still it is a base paper kind of document, so there is no harm to cite it, and rather you should cite it if it has a relevance to your paper. Identification of the gap, already I have mentioned that through literature you identify the gap. Sometimes that's why in many cases people do prefer that they add certain portion of the literature review or literature in the introduction section, and some of them they put it in the methodology section, not a separate literature review section. So it depends on the journal. Clear link to the research objective, that it is not that your review is leading to something else and what you have presented in the other section of your paper is totally different. So that linkages should be there. Engaging writing style again, and that needs practice. It will not come in a day or two. Once you practice more, and then definitely this will be something not like a typical English writing. So there is a language or there is a way to write those kind of technical lines, and then for that if you read more papers you'll get to know what should be the right way of writing that. Citation and referencing should be adequate, and so that it will not make anything like wrong argument. Suppose you have picked up one information from one paper and you cite something else which is not right. So that's why my advice, whatever you are writing, so cite while you write. So with this concept, so we'll show you that how to go for referencing in that. Then you have coherence and flow. So your methodology should be so detailed, so that if tomorrow somebody else would like to do such kind of application of your methodology, can easily follow. Justification of the methods, because as I already mentioned in my previous lectures, that there is a number of methods, and then you can pick up like you can pick something out of it. So what is the reason behind selection of that particular method, that is very important. Then you have to also mention about the sampling strategy, good fit for your research, data collection instrument, how you want to do the data collection, data analysis, what method and why. Then definitely in such cases, if it is something like pilot testing, pilot study should be conducted, so that you be sure that your approach, your data collection, your questionnaire is perfect to go ahead. Alternative considered. So this is something, nowadays you will get this question. Suppose you use certain HP method, the reviewer may ask that why HP, why not ANP. So in your write up it should be clear why HP is used, or else if there is alternative methods, it is sometimes wise to also test it and then say that this is the best one because of certain criteria. Then after that, the validation strategy, that the data validation part, if it is applicable, it's not like for all the cases you will have this. It should have consistency with the research question. So research question and objective and the methods, they should be in some kind of harmony, and there should be some linkages. Then graphical representation, many a times it is good that if you can use some flow chart to show the methodology. Coming to the method section, so this is also important, and we have discussed it, that research methodology versus method, in our last discussion. Now in this case, the method validity, we need to check that whether this is still valid, or there is some kind of advanced method, or this particular method you have picked up is no longer being accepted in the scientific community. Then reliability, that how you can rely on that. So for reliability check, you can also try other method and try to see that if there is homogeneity in the findings, so probably you can check the reliability as well. Objectivity of this particular method, if that is too objective and you cannot figure out, so probably you need to cross check if there is any alternative where you can get the better result. Then it depends on the precision, that what level precision you require, and based on that you take the methods. Appropriateness, again, if you see that something you want to do, the capture the culture, capture the value, probably in that case you will better choose the qualitative methods rather than the quantitative methods. It should have some kind of property which can generalize, because if it is just a pinpointed thing and then it cannot be generalized, so sometimes question may be asked. So your method will have that component. You also need to mention about the ethical consideration if it is required. If you are doing something on the perception or experiment, you need to take those kind of ethical, even if you do it on animals, so there should be some ethical thing. So that is very important and we should adhere to it. Then it should be something like really innovative, rather we should target the current and trendy methods rather than very old book which is now become obsolete. Then the comprehensiveness of the method, so that it will tell about what type of data required, and you should not make some kind of sandwich between that. Okay, you picked up one method and you picked up a different data collection strategy, and you just collected some information, and then you will find difficulty to analyze it. So then that is not the right case. After collecting the data, what you need to check, the accuracy of the data if it is being collected from secondary sources. Then we also check the reliability, that already we discussed in the last class, that data reliability, and the validity, whether that data is still valid. Because if you are taking some old data and try to portray and consider it for the present condition, may not be a good idea to go ahead. Relevance and completeness, that if there is some kind of missing data and the data is not relevant, it is something that I want to do something on the child population and your data is for the adult population. So even if the population data is there with you, but that cannot be applied. So that is something you need to check. Consistency in the data, so that the other sources, if you check that there is some consistency, it should not be that it is varied across different sources. Then also the timeliness, that some data is outdated, like it's very old data which you cannot use it, or maybe sometimes it happens that you collect a data and then by some way that you are not able to write the paper out of that analysis, and you try to do it after say 5-10 years. So as because there is a change, especially like when it is a perception, whether it is a socio-economic aspect of any region and all, and is keep on changing, so then the data collected at that time may be a good database, but you cannot use it to represent the present context. Consent and permission also, that is to be taken into consideration, which is like a ethical approval. Scalability is another one, that how you can use the data and at what scale, whether it is can be only used as a neighborhood level, or it is at the district level, or it can be a national level. So how you can use that data. Openness and accessibility. So this is something where nowadays the journals are also suggesting that you give this particular access to your data, so you add data brief, so that if somebody would like to get benefit out of that data, so there are different, definitely they will not make it mandatory to take the data that you have, but yes, you have to make that database ready. If required, you also produce that out of this data what you derived. Then metadata documentation, because maybe the data that you used in your paper is very crisp form of that data, but other information associated with that you also need to document. And then cross verification is also required whenever you have the such kind of information, especially from the secondary sources. So after the analysis, the important part is to write the results. So here also you have to write the result, the accuracy and precision. So if your results are, say you have done some quantitative analysis and there is some sort of check into that. So if your result is not statistically acceptable, not significant, so you have to report that. You should not just take any value and then you report it and claim that okay, there is a strong relation. So if that relation is approved or relation is established through those kind of values of test hypothesis and other thing, so that you need to take care. Consistency should be there, so that you should not claim something somewhere and then you just change your argument. Then the relevance of that particular result in the argument, it may not be like you are interested to say do a research the perception between male and female towards the public transportation in a city. So in that case, if it is gender is something where you want to see the heterogeneity in perception, so maybe the other associated factors, the building type, or maybe the number of stories in building, so those kind of information, even if you have collected in your household survey, will not really be important in this context. So you have to find out the relevance. It should have the complete information. So if there is some kind of linked result, you should also say that. You should not surprise and you only say that these are the result that I want to show and these are not the result that is not coming proper, so you are not showing it. That is also not right. Significance, you need to check that. Already I mentioned that if it is significant by those kind of test statistics and other criteria, then you show. Visual representation is very important. So if you write everything line after line, it will be very monotonous. So if you find that your result can be better shown with a graph, you use the graph. If it is can be better shown with tables, so you add the table. So in combination of that, you can really use it. Nowadays we have very good infographics and all, you can also use the same. Interpretation is also important here. It's not just the reporting, because if you add a table, all the information are there, but then you have to interpret that okay, if the sign is negative to a correlation, what it means, if it is a positive, what it means. So like that you need to interpret. Comparison with the hypothesis and expectation, that whether end of this, whether it is meeting your hypothesis, whether you can accept it or you have to reject the hypothesis. Then limitation acknowledgement, that if something is not coming up or it is say out of the scope of that particular survey, you mention it here, so that there should not be any unnecessary argument that why you have not done it. So if your intention is to study the gender heterogeneity, so you mention that why gender heterogeneity, and then it should not be a case that one may ask you that, okay, have you also seen the income, have you ever seen that, okay, what is the ownership status of the car. So like that you also need to make the limitation. Then awareness of the bias, especially when you go for public opinion, there might be some biasness, so that you need to acknowledge. After results, we need to have the discussion section. So discussion section definitely is very important, and it should not be something that a repetition of your results. So this section essentially compare the previous research, where it is similar, where it is dissimilar, where it is the new thing. So you have to also highlight the novelty in the discussion section. Consistency with the hypothesis and objective, so this will make a parity between your result and discussion. Generalization of the findings, maybe your findings is very specific to a city, say example Delhi, but like this some of the findings which may be generalized, and if you can compare it with other cities, you can generalize the findings in discussion. Then it is very important that how your research is going to help in the theoretical implication and then the practical one. So it may be some kind of add-on value addition to the existing theory or body of knowledge, or it may have a practical implication. Then contextualization is also very important, that at what context you have started this write up and then how you are contributing to that. Comparison with the literature review, the findings, the past results. Avoiding redundancy, so in this case you just don't duplicate the things, that in order to write discussion you again take some portion of the result and write it again. And write critical analysis, if it is high, if it is low, why, and what is the possible reason for it, that you write. The last part of it is a conclusion, and it is very important. So in this case you just summarize the key findings, and in this case you just connect it with the introduction. So if you read your introduction and conclusion, it should give you that what is the content inside. Okay, there should be a harmony, and try to avoid new information. So don't try to make some extra effort and put some new sentences which are not there in your entire manuscript, and all of a sudden it is a new terminology. So it will not be a good idea. So you just make it very crisp. Implication and applications, already that whatever you have written in discussion, you just summarize in a very short form. Reflection on the research process, if you have done something like some new concept that you have developed, new methodology you have tried, new methods you have tested for your context, you can also write that part. Limitation and area for improvement, so limitation is very important, that what are the limitations of this particular study. It may be data limitation, it may be sometimes it may be a time limitation, it may be sometime some other limitations. So you specify that particular limitations in this section, and also the scope for improvement. And then after that you have to have the closure of the research questions, that how your research questions being answered. So if the question is that, okay, the question that is there any significant difference in perception of male female towards public transportation in a city, if your result says yes, so then you say that yes, it is there. So probably if the male, they perceive this particular safety as low compared to the female towards public transportation. So like that you can make it. Engagement with the implication, so that you say that, okay, this is your findings, this is your result, okay, but who are going to use it. So if there is some kind of implication of that particular research, practical recommendation, you can do that. And encouragement for future research, your findings will lead to some kind of future research. Probably this is a step number 1, so that may lead to a next step of your next objective, or it may lead to some kind of new direction that is of interest. And then finally you close it, the conclusion section. Now after that, what we cannot ignore, that is the references. So here you have to have the accuracy, the proper things should be followed. It should be complete, it should not be like half information, somewhere the year is missing, somewhere the journal name is wrong. It should be consistent. You can follow any referencing style that APA, IEEE, Vancouver will discuss in detail different style and how to write it. But for this time being, whatever you picked up, just be consistent. Relevance of this citation, it should not be just in order to cite you put something where you don't have any idea of that particular paper. So just make it. Diversity of sources, it should not be like from only one journal or one conference. You just be make it diverse. So take some good journal papers, and for good journal paper it's better to follow good journal papers only, but you can also go to some renowned conferences, and if there is established proceedings, you may also refer to the published thesis as well. So there you can do. Then you also refer the scholar authority, that different kind of write up and working paper. Clarity in citation style, it should be similar. Proper formatting of that, consistency in in-text citation. So whenever you cite anything in the body, that should have the full reference at the end, and if there is something in reference, that should be in the body. So there should not be any mismatch. So manually it is really tiring and very challenging. So we'll also discuss this in the referencing as a topic that I plan to cover in our upcoming lectures. So how to use different referencing manager for that. And then obviously you have to adhere to the style guide. So if you are writing it for certain specific journal, there is some sort of guidance to this, so you just follow that. Now finally, you have to also acknowledge, in this case you add all the people, organization, authority that support you. Maybe it is funding, maybe help in survey, maybe help in providing information. You have to make them. It should be also very concise, it should not be very lengthy. So in crisp manner, it will have relevance. It's not like you just give some kind of vague statement. Order of mention also you need to think that depending on the help. Acknowledgement of funding is very important. Gratitude the specific contribution, that if you acknowledge what for, if it is for providing the fund, if it is providing for getting access to the data, getting access to the survey location, you specify. There should not be something that you just give acknowledgement to a party too much and the others just one particular small fragment of sentence. So there should be a balance. Ethical consideration, whether you are allowed to acknowledge, so you also need to take that ethical approval that you are citing their names. Acknowledgement of institutional support as well. So sometimes if it is a part of your PhD program or a project, so you should also cite that. Appreciation of personal support as well, like you take help from some undergraduate student, postgraduate student, or anyone during your survey, just mention. So with that we summarize this particular lecture. So here we understood what is research writing. So it is just a written document of your entire research findings, and the purpose of this particular thing is definitely to disseminate your findings for advancement of the knowledge in the same area, okay, to get the recognition, contribute to the educational aspect, or in for your professional development as well. So that was the need of for the research. Important step, starting from selecting topic, selecting methodology, writing it, and then we have discussed in detail the different components and what are the different aspect that you need to consider to write those component of research. So with that I think this is going to help you a lot, and then if you have any such kind of doubt, you write to us in the forum. We'll definitely get back to you with the clarity. So these are some study material, and we'll continue this discussion in the research writing part 2 in our next lecture. Thank you.